Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Services Ops podcast presented by Provis, where we get into everything people, processes, and technology of running a really great services business. As always, I'm here with our co-host, Provis Services CPQ CEO and co-founder Mahesh Bakshi. Today, we've got a really special guest coming to us from Persistent Systems, SVP and Global Head of Salesforce Delivery, Sid Mishra. Sid, welcome.
Thank you so much, Chris, for having me here. Great to talk to you once again, Mahesh.
Same here. Super excited for today's episode, Sid.
Yeah, and we're really excited for this episode. I think, Sid, you run a very large organization and have really, really great insights. And so what I thought would be great to start off with is having a little bit of conversation about the kind of work that you're doing at Persistent Systems. And I know Mahesh has some really probing, interesting questions as well for you.
Sure. So let me start, right? So Sid Mishra, I'm part of Persistent Systems, as you said, Chris, and I look after the entire Salesforce global practice and the business that we have at Persistent. Been in the industry for more than 25 years, been in the CRM and enterprise applications world all through. So the customer relationship part is something that I really love, and I love solving business problems, and that's what I try to teach my team to do in a more effective way. Team of roughly 2,600, 2,700 is what I manage globally. Based out of India, lived in US, came back here, been around the world in many countries and lived there so that I get a flavor of it. So manage global delivery, making sure that I deliver customer success to our customers, working with partners like Salesforce, yourself, and many others. So that's my job and role. At Persistent Systems, again, I think Mahesh will know a bit of it as well. It's one of the fastest growing mid-cap IT companies in India. It's been performing fairly well, and I think our results are going to be out soon. Hopefully, they'll be again in the same stream the way we've been performing. It's grown. Its stock price has grown in the last 1 year or so, and I think we've been doing pretty good from scaling point of view. I think we used to be 20,000 odd employees in 2020. Right now, we are roughly 24,000 employees. So I think that's the scale at which we're operating and growing. So it's exciting times.
It is, Sid. And Persistent, not only fastest growing company, but the philosophy, ideology that it grows with is something that I truly admire. It's one of those companies that I follow very closely and I admire very closely. So kudos to you for the success and running such a large organization. Let's talk about Salesforce and the practice that you run. I mean, Salesforce by itself is a vast ocean, right? But give us for our audience's benefit, give us a flavor of kinds of things that you do within the Salesforce practice.
Yeah, sure, Mahesh. So again, see Salesforce and all the SaaS cloud-based application, right? I think the way it has evolved over the past 20 odd years, right? And what we do, we like being, super specialized in a few of the micro verticals, right? And that in a way differentiates us. So the Persistent genes is actually into product engineering. We started being a product engineering specialist, and that's why the entire technology heavy, experience that comes to us. With Salesforce also, we started being a product engineering partner, frankly, 18 years back. And that's how we started our journey. But then after knowing the product and knowing what's under the hood, the thought was that why can't we even help implement this amazing product to our customers? And we started by focusing a little more on banking and financial services customers, healthcare, life sciences customer, two of our largest BUs. And within that also, instead of sprinkling across the entire gamut of BFSI, we picked up within banking, digital lending, right? So loan origination systems across India, large banks, I think we do that. In healthcare and life sciences, we picked up patient services, cell and gene therapy, specialty drugs, right? Very, very niche areas. And that's where we specialize. And obviously, while we do that, we do gamut of other services, because as Salesforce grows and acquires multiple companies and adds new clouds, that's something that, frankly, that's exciting for me, for the team as well. It keeps us on our toes. We keep on learning, whether it's going from sales and service to CPQ. And within CPQ, there are white spaces where, product partners like you come in. And that's why we keep on scaling, whether it's marketing cloud to others. So from implementing the platform and digital lending and other solutions like niche ones, to adding the sales service, CPQ, commerce cloud, so many other slivers on top of it, and trying to make it a multi-cloud, wall-to-wall kind of a offering on Salesforce for our customers, ultimately helping them succeed and deliver to their own customers is what we do, frankly.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And like you said, I think there are a lot of Salesforce implementation companies out there, but I think what you guys specialize in, especially life sciences and healthcare vertical, right? So for the audience's benefit, Persistent and Provis has agreed into a partnership to basically help persistent customers transform their quote to cash journey, especially when it comes to services quoting. And so together we allow or we solve for a complex services quoting problem in that life sciences and healthcare vertical. So, Sid, I think it would be nice if you can drill a little bit deeper into the life sciences and healthcare vertical. And from I mean, I think one of the specialties that you and Persistent have is to do quote to cash transformation in healthcare and life sciences vertical, which I've not seen other companies do it so well as Persistent does. And in that, you found this niche or you found this gap about service quoting. So if you can talk about overall that vertical, the quote to cash, what's involved, and then how you guys found this gap from and or what customers were asking for from a services quoting perspective, I think that would be helpful.
Sure. Sure, Mahesh. So see, Salesforce, the CPQ tool, obviously they've got a multiple slivers of it and they've scaled there, but it's largely the product side of CPQ is what they provide, right? You can configure product and try to, sell it. But then when it comes to services CPQ side, and that's where there's a white space, right? So when we are doing it for and when I talk about healthcare and life sciences, especially med devices, right? Med device companies, or most of these companies are trying to move away from selling a product to selling it as a service. And that's when the entire pricing quoting mechanism and the shift happens. So CPQ of Salesforce can do that. But then, for example, let me take a med devices company which is selling maybe hospital beds to X-ray machines to all these large medical devices. How that product is configured, Salesforce CPQ will do. But how that product gets implemented, and it takes around 6 months of projects to implement it, go to hospital, try to make sure that all the security checks and everything is vulnerabilities are in place, making sure that the guardrails and laws and legalities are all provisioned. So that entire services portion was something that's the white space, and that's where I think the product CPQ and the services CPQ, all of them combined, and a SI partner like Persistent stitching it all together. I think that is a unique thing which I found that where we all can partner and try to make sure it happens. Again, I think many of our customers are looking at, if again taking the same example of hospital beds, right? If they are being sold as one-time device, now hospitals are saying, I don't want that device from you. I want you to sell me as a service, right? Can you charge me for the number of times on the hospital bed a patient's the credit, all the vital statistics are anyway monitored and reported back, right? Is it a intelligent smart bed you can maintain and serve? I'm going to pay you by patient, or multiple new ways that they want to do it, right? And that's where the process of quoting to servicing to implementation, everything becomes very complex. And to digitize all Salesforce and Provis and Persistent, I think that's a combination which comes in pretty handy. So very interesting problems being offered, and looking forward to solutioning that.
Yeah, I think last 2 decades we have talked about product as a service, and now we're talking service as a product.
Yeah.
And the way customers consume all of this has changed drastically as well, right? I mean, who would have thought that, I just don't want to buy the number of beds. I want the entire gamut of things along with that, right? Which is amazing. I mean, we typically, you guys do this day in, day out, and you guys do it for very large customer of yours across the globe. We talk about outcomes a lot, and, why customers should automate. I mean, automation is kind of given, that's how you start. But when you think of outcome in today's world, data is everything. And, more structured data that you have, more thought process you have given to how you are going to organize your data, lets you have lots of benefits from the AI perspective and all that. But ultimately, it starts with what is the outcome that you are aiming for? In your experience, what is it that you have seen that customers are like, here are the 3 reasons we are suffering. Maybe it's margin, maybe it's our top line, maybe it's cycle time, whatever those are. But what are the typical outcomes that customers are striving for when they think of automating quote to cash, including the services components?
Yeah, interesting one, Mahesh. I think if I think of it right, see, there are multiple layers I like to peel it in. One is the entire talent supply part, where also there's outcome, right? Expected. Now going into, you can go and try to take a few technical bodies and try to have them do anything. But then how are you measuring that outcome? Because even, services provided on a tool like Salesforce or Provos or others, it's not that you do once and you're done with it, right? Because it keeps on evolving. I'm sure you keep on releasing many new features on an ongoing basis. Salesforce definitely does it. So the entire support during that duration becomes very important, and it's no more a ticket solving exercise where you have a few bodies. It's about people how they can advise that new feature is coming, dear customer, this is what you can do to help define the outcome for your end customers. So the entire, that's why the 360 thing comes in. So one, that pricing model we are seeing has changed as well, right? Because customers are expecting us, how are you going to define the outcome, the velocity at which you're going to define. One is IT outcome, second is also business outcome, right? So from service level agreements, it's also going to business level agreements, right? So BLAs and SLAs, I think that's also one part, that I'm seeing all the IT SLAs green, but my end customer is still unhappy. Are you defining the right outcomes? Can it be BLAs which are business outcomes, and how fast am I able to generate a code, and I'm going to pay you basis that. So very interesting discussions happening on that part. It's a little hard to marry the old world to the new world and try to define it very, very clearly. But those are the interesting questions also coming in, right? Because the speed at which, frankly, that's one measure. And I'll give you another example from a recent customer case where the customer themselves, the IT, the CIO org, which is my customer internally, they were struggling to go to the business calls and try to define and say, and the IT org is always defining by the typical metric, right? Ticket solving, green, this, that, everything. What we try to define is that, the defects you get per code that you generate. So that's a very different metric, right? And then that's when the business said, you're talking my language, right? Because my end sales guy is generating a code. At the end of it, he wants a defect-free experience. If you are able to have one defect, that's bad, right? How do you reduce it? Out of 20 codes I generate, if I get one defect, that's one measure. Let's move it further down, right? So you define it with the outcome that the end business is expecting, and then tie you IT, because IT is ultimately, we are all delivering to the business and their growth. We can't just be staying behind and saying that this is my IT metric, I'm all green, while business might be suffering. So that's the way things are shifting from the IT side to the business side and other aspects. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that's very innovative. That's amazing. Um, so, so typically we see a lot of customers, or at least bunch of customers sitting on the fence when it comes to quote to cash, or especially services quoting, and they're like, oh well, I have Excel spreadsheet, it works for me.
Yeah.
But then, when you talk about, oh, are you able to learn anything from your historic data? Are you able to apply AI technologies on your Excel spreadsheets? Do you have the data that can be, collated in such a form that tells you what your realized margin and sold margins were? Are you able to optimize your margins? Are you able to maximize your revenue? All that stuff. And they're usually sitting on the fence. I'm sure you run into that situation a lot, that customers are like, sitting on the fence, should they sign up for this project? Should they not sign up for this project? What are, let's say, one or two things that has worked to move customer off of the fence that they are in and say, okay, let's do this journey?
I think that's, the AI right now, it's more of a peak of, hype cycle expectations right now. It's coming into that plateau of productivity, as Gartner hype cycle calls it out, right? But many proof points and POCs are being done. And in many cases, we are realizing this, the data is not in place. Where do I generate my, analytics to give you the kind of output that you're expecting? But again, I think what you said is very right. The Excel sheet based silos of data that we have, how do we try to now, again, another option Salesforce offers is like data cloud that can have a real-time integration and try to make sure that data in whatever shape and form you can try to bring in, try to get it to a measurable outcome. But you know what, to answer your question, there's a lot of research being done. There's also a lot of, and again, coming to healthcare and life sciences part, right? There's a lot of laws and legal rules and all that part. I think AI trying to come to the real senses in that area is still being tried. Now, we've done some POCs in limited, what you call in the four walls of security for the customers. They're still wondering, how do I open it up? Right? What kind of legalities might come in because I'm using some personal information of my patients to, customers to everything else. So it's getting into the realism. But again, I think there are many other areas, which is manufacturing or, frankly, even BFSI and other places where we are trying to make sure that the entire data and the LLMs we have, for example, a customer service scenario, right? There again, how innovatively you can try to solve and effectively you can help your customers, I think AI is helping in a big manner. In a customer service scenario, we had the next best action and all those things initially, but then now the entire knowledge base, it can be literally made a knowledge base, if I may call it so, right? Because it's truly providing you knowledge, because the LLMs that we have and AI is actually generating those KBs and suggesting that this is where you should add input for the next agent to pick it up, or this is what you should use to talk to your customers right now, because I know I can understand this where the customer is coming from. So very interesting experiments being done right now, Mahesh. But again, it's time where it reaches the plateau of productivity, frankly, on the AI side.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, that's great. And no, this is great. And we can continue to chat for many hours. But I think to bring it to closure, this part of the conversation, one last question, which is for your customers and prospects who are listening to this webinar, what is that one key takeaway in terms of, look, I mean, the quote to cash journey is very critical. It's a complex journey. It's a transformational journey, and this is where you, as Persistent, help. If either they've embarked on a journey or they're about to embark on a journey, what is that one key takeaway from your perspective for that audience?
Yeah. See, Mahesh, what I'll say is, as enterprises become more and more digital, honestly, digital is the only moat that will differentiate an old org versus a new org, right? There are many neo banks to new companies, and frankly, digital imaging services, I think their labs, which is a big customer for me, they are getting into AI based, so that, when they run a mammogram or whatever they do, I think there's a AI behind it that can predict it even better whether there's a chances of cancer or not. So digital is the moat, and that is going to beat all the legacy companies versus the new companies, right? So the faster you adopt digital, the faster you make sure that you get into digital tools that can help you leverage the power of AI. Otherwise, AI is going to leave all the legacy companies behind and move forward. So I think that's what I'll say. And obviously, we all are partners in crime, trying to make sure all the legacy or other companies become more of digital companies, because technology is everywhere, right? Automotive industry, the way Tesla is transformed is, I don't know whether it's mechanical engineering is required to manufacture a car, or you need computer science engineering to manufacture a car. That's also become a question. So I think digital moat is what whosoever in a way defines the most effective way. And obviously, as Persistent, we call ourselves a digital engineering company. And that's what we help do it for our customers, knowing the product engineering part and knowing the services part. And that's where we can be partners with, partners like yourself and Salesforce and so many others. I think that's what I'll say is the thing of the future and how we can help our customers.
Perfect. This is great, Sid. Thank you so much. This was very insightful. Really appreciate your time and sharing all the knowledge here.
Thank you so much, Mahesh. Great talking to you. Thank you, Chris, for the opportunity. And it's great partnering with you and talking to you, Mahesh. All the best.
Thank you very much, Sid. And I think that was a really insightful conversation. Quote to cash, digital moat. That's the big takeaway, right? Once again, here we are talking about don't get left behind. And that's part of why this podcast exists. We really want to emphasize don't get left behind, because we want everyone to be successful. We want your businesses to grow. And there's some steps you need to take there. And you really need to think about your digital strategies, both internal and external. So very great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sid. We're going to continue our conversation with Sid in just a little bit and talk about what it means to create a workforce made up of the next generation, Gen Z, our future business leaders. Until we get to that episode, I want to thank everybody for watching, listening. Please like, subscribe, share with all your colleagues. Really great advice from Sid. And go out and be a bold services leader.